It's Jody of Astro Podcasts. Hello, welcome to this week's astrology report for October 27th to November 3rd. Astro Podcast is filmed on Studio Cloud9. Welcome to my weekly podcast. Astro Podcast is produced by Power Boots, LLC. This week we are preparing for the eclipse, which is tomorrow, which is what I talked about last Friday. It was all this week we're preparing for tomorrow's eclipse, which is a full moon lunar eclipse in Taurus. Full moons only occur when the moon is opposite of the sun, and the sun illuminates the moon and brightens it up, and so it is completely lit up. But when there is an eclipse, the earth comes between the moon and the sun and casts a shadow on the moon. And when that happens, our emotions are stirred up and things start happening internally where our shadow self starts to rise up, and we must be acknowledging our shadow self. This whole week was leading up to that, and today the moon is in Aries, meeting up with the North Node because the North Node shifted in July into Aries and Libra. This lunar eclipse is the last one of the axis eclipses that occurred for the past 18 months of our lives. That was in Taurus and Scorpio. And during those times, the themes were Earth and water. Venus, Mars, and Pluto rule Scorpio. With the Sun in Scorpio, Mercury in Scorpio, Mars in Scorpio, and now there's going to be a lunar eclipse opposite of the Sun. We are dealing with all the themes that we had to deal with for the past 18 months before the nodal axis of fate shifted. And we've had a couple of eclipses now, and they occurred in the Aries-Libra axis. And those are about Mars and Venus again, flip-flopping from Taurus to Scorpio. Before, Mars was in the South Node with Scorpio. Now Mars is at the top of the nodal fate of axis. So what does all this mean? What does it mean? Why do I care? The reason you should care is because, as predicted, as seen by the astrologists, that there was chaos coming, noise, as one astrologist put it. Lots of noise, lots of chaos, lots of time where we must learn to heal ourselves so that we can move through these chaotic times. If we're not stable in our core of who we are, we can lose sight of our values and what's important. I feel as though this is what the Game of Thrones series prepared us for in HBO. All art right now is about this moment in time happening. The end game with the Marvel movies. If you're into Marvel movies, you know about the end game. This is the time now when all these things are coming up, and it's kind of head scratching because even though you can see a train coming, doesn't mean you're going to get out of the way in time if that's not what you want, right? So the war in the Middle East, the war in Europe with Ukraine and Russia, the wars that are everywhere right now in a lot of developing countries, all has to come down to energy, lack of energy, which means lack of resources, the ability to pump water out of a well, the ability to make medicine, the ability to fight off invaders by having an airplane or a jet or a tank or whatever it is. Running out of medicine also has to do with lack of energy. So the world, every time there's been a world war, it always has to do with natural resources and power. Because if you have energy, you have power, literally power. We are at that crux right now again in our civilization where the way humans are consuming natural goods is starting to tilt into a chaotic territory for the earth, and that's what we're facing right now. And that's why World War I occurred, World War II occurred, why they separated the lands the way they did that had oil The way things are put in control right now, who has power, who doesn't, all came from that time of World War II, but that time is now outdated. It's been almost 100 years, and a lot of those rules and laws that they made back then aren't viable anymore. The way things are going, the way people are educated, they understand what's going on now, and they're not going to be held back from their rightful resources. So what are we going to do? No one knows what's going to happen now because the vortexes, the extremes have been activated just like at any other time when there's a lack of resources and there's a power grab. There is chaos in the world. There's shootings, there's mass shootings still occurring. People are getting hurt, getting destroyed. When there's lack of energy, lack of resources, as it turns out, there's a lot of death in the world. Not just from hunger. The hunger is the first sign of that. And then the people that have the power, have the money, they will hang on to it, and other people will fight them for it. So it's kind of like the bully that wants your sandwich because your mom made you this awesome sandwich. The bully wants your sandwich because his mom didn't make him an awesome sandwich. His mom might be at work. So he doesn't get that privilege of getting that. So he wants yours, and he's going to bully you for it. Because that's the way the animal acts. That's the way our natural instincts are, is to go for that food. Everything that's happening, if you're wondering what's going on, it's because there's so many people on Earth. There's plenty of natural resources, but it's not distributed fairly because the powers that be want to keep their power. You can get a lot of people on board with that concept where, save yourself, come with me. I'll make sure we have all the resources when the time comes. And so then the Walking Dead theory comes in where people are just walking around hungry, looking for food, and they'll do anything to get food. And there was cannibalism in our history, in the wars, the holy wars. There was not enough food in Northern Europe. They had to leave their island, they had to leave their land where it's cold and they can't grow food year round. They had too many people and they were starving. So one of the things they developed was, hey, let's have a holy war and take resources out of these people's lands who have all kinds of food, like the Mediterranean area. They could grow all kinds of food. Let's go down there and in the name of God, in the name of saving our people, let's go down there and take their land so we can have food. And that's how it's always began. That's how America's history started, was coming here under the guise of persecution for their religion, but really there was no food there. There's no food in England. Not for all the people they have. So they had to spread out, manifest destiny for them. And they came here to America and took all the resources from the Native Americans. And that's the way the power always goes, is towards the person who's willing to be more aggressive, who's willing to be the bully and go for what they want against the people that are willing to share. But what they're willing to share is not enough. So the planets right now are in huge, huge, huge movements, huge meetings. Venus in Virgo will be having a meeting with Uranus during the eclipse. And Uranus is in Taurus with the full moon, opposite of the sun in Scorpio. So not just opposite the sun, but opposite Mars in Scorpio, Mercury in Scorpio. So we are being challenged through our minds and our actions, what we think, what we believe, causing us to make these actions, the way we live, the way we survive. We're being challenged by the lunar eclipse in Taurus, who holds on to the earth and the old ways, doesn't let go, doesn't want to renew. And Uranus is there, and Uranus is shaking up Taurus's life Taurus are probably glad that this is going to be the last eclipse for them, because it's been shaking up their lives in ways they didn't understand. But now that here comes Venus meeting up with Taurus during this full moon. And Jupiter is activated, but Jupiter and Uranus are still retrograde. So everything that's happening with their meetings right now are being stored away. So when they wake up, which is during the end of this year, when they wake up, everything they've been storing and learning with their meetings with Venus, Mars, Mercury, the Sun, all those things that they've been programming and saying to them has been written down and stored. So when they start waking up, you're going to feel what it is Venus and Uranus are talking about during this eclipse. And since Uranus is the shock jock, electricity, innovation, social media, communication, the way things flow through the air, it's going to really shock the Taurus people who want everything to be in front of their faces and be the truth, the fact. For them, for Taurus people, or the Taurus energy, let's just say that, Taurus energy holds on to value, to what they believe is the right thing to do. They love tradition, they love antiques, things like that. But some can be, the Taurus energy, when it's activated deeply, can, with Jupiter there, could exacerbate the fact that Taurus will not give an inch, will not budge, because they are the rock. And the only way to get rid of a rock, or to do anything with a rock, chip away with it or blow it up with a dynamite, right? And so that's Uranus coming in saying, I have that power to kaboom these values and change it into an innovative way. So Venus in Virgo is sitting there being a person who is editing out certain values, editing out certain things that we hold on to. And Virgo is all about purity and service, because the Virgo Pisces axis is about service. So Venus being in Virgo is saying the highest value you can give to the world is service. And what does service mean? It means things you do, things you invent, things you make, help other people, not just yourself. And also doesn't damage people through that service that you're providing, correct? So it's going to be a boatload of stuff happening as November breaks open next week. Halloween is on Tuesday next week, and then November 1st begins on Wednesday. As November opens up, Saturn prepares to wake up next Saturday, and we'll talk about that next Friday when Saturn wakes up and what that means for us, because Saturn has been holding on to a lot of meetings and a lot of notes has been taking. And if you've been doing deep dive work into your soul and you're willing and open to listen to other people's point of views and not hold on to your own point of view to the detriment of everyone else, if you can release stagnant energy that you may have inherited, and you have inherited, we have inherited the age of the patriarchy for 5,000 years, beginning with the Roman age. So we have inherited this trauma, this war, this need to kill and wipe out certain people because they don't agree with us. When you run into someone that doesn't agree with you, like the Taurus people may run into a Scorpio, both are fixed signs. Both think they're right. So how do they manage to get along? If the work has been done, the inner work, the love of yourself, being able to forgive yourself, whether you're bulimic, whether you're an addict, whether you're insecure, whether you have anxiety, Whether you have schizophrenia, whatever it is that you may have, whether you're bipolar, whether you're abused, whether you're an abuser, if you can forgive yourself, then you can forgive other people. Some people have done really bad things and they're in jail and they have to forgive themselves in jail, and that's what the jail is supposed to be, rehabilitation, right? So if you put yourself in jail mentally, emotionally, spiritually, because you're so judgmental on yourself, then you won't make it through this period in a loving, kind way. And you'll start to see it because things will start to crumble that you thought were written in stone. But that stone is going to get cracked and break apart. And what you thought would never break apart does break apart. So these are the things you must face and handle right now. And it's not easy. So meditate, take your walks in nature, but don't go and use things like alcohol and drugs to help you manage these things, because that only exacerbates and makes it worse, because all those are depressants, most of them, right? So you really, really have to meditate, find joy in the sun, in the rain, in the wind, in the grass. And you got to find optimism that no matter what, nature always provides. But if you hoard it and you don't share, then there's no chance of the world ever having peace. And a good place to start is within your own family. If you run up against people in your family that are still upset about things that happened in the past and still point fingers and blame, like what's happening with Israel and Gaza, there has been no inner need for you to have worked on yourself because you don't think you're ever wrong. When you misunderstand that as a human, you have the ability to shift and change your mind and your heart. If you can find that in yourself, that would be really great. And if you like to read, sing, dance, act, anything, go for it. If you feel that, do it. You don't need to feel embarrassed. Just say what you got to say. Make a video if you want of yourself. Just do what you got to do. But you have to let go of limiting fear that has been put into our culture to control us. So don't be afraid to be yourself. Now, if you're going to harm other people, then yeah, don't do that. Then you do have a problem if you want to harm people. Okay? In any way. If you want to harm emotionally, verbally, physically, any way that you want to spew out negativity and harm others, then you're not right. Because you can never hurt other people. And if you hurt yourself and you don't forgive yourself, you're definitely going to be hurting other people. And that is what the world is involved in right now. Pain and remembrance of being hurt, holding on to it for thousands of years, reincarnating yourself to where you're still holding that karma and still lashing out at yourself. It's a situation where your soul is really trying to work out some stuff and you're not listening. You're not allowing it to evolve. So there's no win-win situation with that. That's just why there's war, because people feel like what they have is not enough and they want more. And they want to go kill people for it. The land, the food, their women, whatever it is they want. So that's where we're at. We're back to 5,000 years ago and the Roman Empire stretching all over the continent, trying to get into this area, and then basically blowing up because they had too much more. No integrity for life. So when we go into the full moon here on the 28th in Taurus, this phase of the moon's at 5 degrees and 9 minutes of Taurus, opposite the sun in Scorpio. It's a busy eclipse configured with Mercury, Mars, and Jupiter. There can be inflated feelings, and we can wrestle with strong urges. So it's wise to sit with our revelations a bit before taking action. And this is from cafeastrology.com. Note that this is one of the several eclipses of a set occurring, but it's the last one. And so this eclipse serves as a final prompt, nudge, or push to make improvements in Taurus and Scorpio ruled areas of your life in your chart. And feelings of discontent can magnify. It's a time to resolve matters, strike a balance, take a lesson, and move on. Now, moving on is hard for a lot of people, especially the fixed signs, Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, Aquarius. So if you have any of those in your chart, you are going to have a hard time. Now, if you have any mutable signs, it'll be better, easier for you. If you have water or earth signs right now, you will be feeling this effect a lot of this lunar eclipse, which I am. You're going to feel this effect a lot. And so this eclipse is, again, water and earth. And water, as you can see, erodes everything, including the earth. So with Scorpio having Mars, Mercury, it's really going to change your inner landscape. And what is your inner landscape? Taurus moon, your emotions, the way you believe something has been, and with that is giving you confidence and love and joy. But when it crumbles apart and you lose your identity, that's when you lash out, when you go and try to kill people. Really take it easy. I'll be back next Friday on November 3rd, and we'll talk about Saturn waking up. And with Jupiter also involved in this eclipse and Uranus, be prepared this weekend for sudden, instant changes to occur out of the blue. Try to find humility and grace this week, because things are going to shake up to the core of your being and the world's being, as we already see. Okay? So peace. Thank you for coming by. I appreciate you. It's not all doom and gloom. If you want it to change, you can change it. Okay? It's up to us to all collectively change from war into peace. But sometimes the war of words gets pushed too far and people react. So thank you for coming by this week. I appreciate you. Please like and subscribe to my pages. Thank you. And I know it's a rough time. I have faith.